Welcome to Frickety Frack. We do talk back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name is Patrick and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show where we discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. We'll be going through an episode of Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, and connected to teachings in the Bible. Now I'll be continuing to study 1,000-Year Blood War until the conclusion of the season. It's going to be going on a season break soon. And when that episode happens, I will announce the next direction that I'm going to go in. And it could be anything ranging from a different anime, comic books, Star Wars, anything like that. And the name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So in this episode, we're going to be covering everything but the rain from Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War. And so we get a glimpse behind the scenes of Ishin, what he was like as a captain. We get some fun moments about Manju and Hitsugaya and Rangiku, saying what they were like. And one of the things that I loved was that Ishin even knew that Hitsugaya was going to be a captain before Rangiku was. And that was a great, fun moment. Because Hitsugaya, if you're familiar with the show and the manga, is that he was touted as this, genius, prodigy, things like that. And so he great things were expected of Hitsugaya. The other kind of, there's one main thing that kind of happens is that we get to see how Ishin and Masaki Kurosaki meet. And so she also has an unfailing desire to protect people that Ichigo has as well, and Ishin also has as well. And so in this episode, we see how they meet, that they're fighting this hollow named White, and it was through their combined efforts that White is defeated, and we're going to learn more about White further down the road, probably most likely in the next episode. And so I'm going to cover a little bit more of that later. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that Aizen is behind this. And so without Aizen, even Ichigo potentially wouldn't have been born. And so, one of those funny things that people always kind of joke about with Aizen is that, everything's his fault or was his plan. And so it's always kind of interesting to see how much Aizen and his little cronies were involved in everything that was going on in Bleach. And so those were the things that were interesting to me. And I'm going to cover a little bit more of Ishin and Masaki's meeting, a little bit more with the biblical theme. And so the biblical theme for today is Proverbs 24, verse 11. This is what it says. Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. So there are two moments in this episode that really kind of point to this for me. First is when Ishin leaves the Soul Society to investigate the death of the Soul Reapers. So Hitsugaya, who's the third seat at this time for Squad 10 that Ishin is the captain of, points out the Soul Reapers' deaths, and so and the investigation that was ongoing for them. And so he leaves Hitsugaya and Rangiku behind, and Rangiku wants to go. She was like, we should go with you, and he's like, nah, this is no big deal. I'll be back in a couple days. And so Rangiku is a little flustered, and Hitsugaya says, like, no, at our current levels, we'd just be on our way. He was just trying to protect us. And so then the second thing that kind of happens with this is when Masaki is explaining to Ryu that, I have to go help. And so Ryu is trying to tell her that, they're special kind of, they're Quincy's, and that other people should be dealing with this mess, like Kitagiri. So he's like, no, this is not for us. And so, but Masaki explains that she can never forget, her future self can never forgive her for letting this go if there was something that she could do to protect protect someone who's is going to lose their life, and because this all centers around the rivalry and the hatred between the Quincy's and the Soul Reapers, and Ryu is trying to tell Misaki that no, don't worry about it. We should wait till after the Soul Reaper's dead. And so during this conversation, we see Ishin fight White and see him release his Shikai. And it's really, it's fascinating. It's fire-based, so that's always really cool. I love fire-based powers. But anyways, and so Misaki, goes and helps. And between Misaki and Ishin, they're able to defeat White rather spectacularly. Misaki has a rather weird battle plan involved, and so that's always fascinating. And so we kind of see where Ichigo gets it from, where he has his own weird things, battle strategies and things like that. But one of the interesting things is that with these two different conversations that happen about protecting others, I thought of the great Spider-Man quote, "With great power must also come great responsibility." And so while I was thinking about this particular event and going, we as Christians are called to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. And I've done lots of different kinds of ministry. I'm currently a pastor of a church that I love dearly and always look forward to, interacting and serving. But for a while, I was a hospital chaplain, and one of my responsibilities as a chaplain was to stand up for the patients and to give voice to them when they might not have a voice. Because that would happen from time to times where, it wouldn't, I'm not saying that doctors or nurses or anything railroaded patients, but, patients, might not necessarily know when they could stand up for themselves and those kind of things. And so that was, my responsibility as a chaplain was to stand up for my patients and to make sure that their lives and care are being met to the best of, our medical facilities capability. And so for we as Christians, we have that same responsibility even in our day-to-day lives, because remember, Jesus came for the least and the lost and the last. He said many a time that, you don't go to the doctor when you're well, you only go to the doctor when you're sick. And those are the kinds of people that he came for, those who are needing to know that God loves them. And so this is also very practical advice from Proverbs, that Proverbs 24:11, rescue those who are being taken away to death, hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. So, as Christians, we're called to stand up for those who are in need. Defend those who can't defend themselves. Does that mean that we need to, take out our Zanpakuto and defend people willy-nilly? Well, no, that's a little bit different, but, that's a whole other thing. But remember that we as Christians are called to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And so if that's through being a prayer warrior, being a defender, like a police officer or military or a first responder, but also it could be standing up for those and being an advocate through different ministries or different programs. Like one of the things that I'm a Methodist Home for Children that cares for children who are in need of homes and structure and things like that. Supporting those kind of ministries. Encore is another great thing to support. And so that's what I thought of with Proverbs 24:11 with this episode, Everything But the Rain. All right, so let me give this a rating. I struggled a little bit with this episode because it is very story driven. The action is a little, I'll say not very much. There's not very much action, but this is very much a story episode. And so, but the fact that we got the little bit of action that we did was really great. And I loved seeing Masaki in action as well as a Quincy. And so, so that's always, you know, a great moment. So I'm just going to give it a 4 because it had wonderful moments, and finding more about Ichigo's past, how Masaki and Ishin met, is always a great moment. So I'm going to give this a solid 4. And like I said, you know, finding out that Ishin's Shikai release is fire-based always makes me happy. I love fire powers. But my favorite would have to be lightning. Sasakibe, may he rest in peace. That's a real bummer for me for not being able to see more of his Bankai and powers. But anywho, anyone with questions for us about the biblical lesson that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or just anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com. You can leave a comment in the comment below on the YouTube video, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf or at frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Remember that I love you, most importantly that God loves you, and so go release your Bankai.